You might remember me from Rocky V, but in real life, I'm Tommy the Duke Morrison, a heavyweight boxer with 24 knockouts, and I'm on my way to the top. Tommy the Duke Morrison was a force of nature, a powerhouse in the ring. He had an electrifying presence, with a right hand that packed serious power, and a left hook that sent shockwaves to the boxing world. For a brief moment, he had a left hook so devastating it could take out any opponent with just one shot. He was like a real-life action figure, charming, exciting, and rocking that signature golden mullet. Applause. Born in Oklahoma in 1969, Morrison was an all-state linebacker in high school. He had scholarship offers, but chose to follow his true passion, boxing. He started fighting at just 13 years old, using a fake ID to enter a local tough man contest. Despite being up against a man twice his age, he knocked him out. He built his skills by competing in county fairs and tough man competitions. I entered 22 of them and won all but one, Morrison once said. Just 6 months after high school, Morrison turned professional. Detroit fans quickly took notice as Tommy made his mark. He fought an unbelievable 18 times in his first year as a pro. Music, that vicious left hook of his made him a rising star. Lane Moore became another knockout victim, falling to Morrison's sheer power. A lot of people thought I was just another Jerry Cooney, someone with power but no skill, Tommy said. But I had the skills to back it up too. However, he was reckless at times. Watching Tommy fight was always exciting. He had incredible finishing ability. For a while, he seemed unstoppable. He had battled his way up from a tough childhood in Oklahoma. Applause. His rise in the boxing world was almost like a repeat of Mike Tyson's a few years earlier. Before even winning a title, Tommy was electrifying audiences with his Tyson-like first-round knockouts. Listen to those punches land. See what I mean? This fight marked a major turning point in Morrison's career. Watching from ringside for the first time was legendary boxing manager Bill Cayton. Music, whoa, there he goes. Cayton was blown away by Morrison's raw, punching power. The young fighter, nicknamed the Duke, had a special appeal. His connection to Hollywood legend John Wayne, his great-granduncle, made him an even bigger attraction. Promoters created stunning posters and press releases to showcase the sport's newest rising star, Tommy the Duke Morrison. Tommy got his famous nickname because of his family tie to John Wayne, the silver screen icon also known as the Duke. Soon, Morrison delivered a brutal body shot that left his opponent crumpled. That punch just caved his chest in. Tommy Morrison was making his way to the top. His connection to John Wayne only added to his growing legend. When these guys step into the ring, there's a good chance someone's getting knocked out, because that's all Tommy Morrison knows. In just 14 fights, Morrison had already racked up 12 knockouts. At 20 years old, fighting out of Kansas City, he had gained a reputation for throwing powerful and accurate combinations. A crushing right hand, followed by a left hook, sent Shelby to the canvas. He's down, sitting there in shock. That was knockout number 13 and win number 15. Tommy Morrison remained undefeated. Tommy the Duke Morrison was a young heavyweight making waves. Tell me about your future. What do you see ahead? I don't know, Morrison said, but I see a big gold belt right here. He was a star, a celebrity, but deep down, still just a young man who had no idea how to handle it all. Fame came fast, and with it came temptations. Women, parties, late nights. It was life in the fast lane. With his newfound fame, Tommy partied hard, often spending nights with different women. We get calls at midnight or 1 a.m. Hey, come get your boy. He's passed out on the floor. Fame and women have been the downfall of many rising stars in boxing. It's a story as old as the sport itself. Tommy was living recklessly, and his choices would eventually catch up with him. Tommy Morrison's rise in boxing was nothing short of electrifying. From a young age, his dedication to the sport was evident, and soon enough, he became one of boxing's biggest attractions. At just 20 years old and weighing 227 pounds, Morrison was already making waves with his aggressive fighting style. He quickly racked up knockout victories, earning a reputation as a powerhouse in the ring. His talent and charisma caught the attention of none other than Sylvester Stallone, who handpicked him to play Rocky Balboa's protege in Rocky V. Morrison took a screen test and landed the role, stepping into the Hollywood spotlight. Stallone even attended his fights, capturing real boxing action for film. Although Rocky V received negative reviews from critics, the movie skyrocketed Morrison's popularity. Fans loved his thrilling knockouts and undeniable star power. At that point, he was an undefeated fighter with a record of 28-0, including 24 knockouts. But despite his growing fame, Morrison was still carrying the label of the Great White Hope, a tag created by the media that he wasn't entirely comfortable with. Then came the biggest fight of his career. Morrison was set to face the hard-hitting Ray Mercer for the heavyweight title. This was a fight that could cement his legacy and prove he was more than just a media sensation. A win would make him a household name. Going into the fight, Morrison had an impressive 28-0 record with 24 knockouts. The anticipation was high, and the event drew a star-studded crowd. Morrison came out strong, dominating early. But in a shocking turn, Mercer landed a brutal knockout punch in the 5th round, handing Morrison his first loss. It was a devastating defeat, overshadowing the fact that Morrison had fought an incredible matchup until that point. Despite his 34 wins and 30 knockouts, the loss to Mercer became one of the defining moments of his career. Determined to bounce back, Morrison began the long climb back to the top. His training intensified. Knowing that to be a true champion, he needed to prepare for full 12-round fights. Soon, the spectacular knockouts returned, proving that Morrison was still a serious contender in the heavyweight division. However, questions remained about his ability to go the distance, especially after suffering a broken jaw and hand in a fight. Despite injuries and setbacks, Morrison showed incredible heart. He pushed forward, displaying the toughness and determination that only true champions possess. He became one of the rare fighters to win a fight despite a broken jaw, a feat that few in boxing history had accomplished. Then, another golden opportunity came his way, a chance to fight the legendary George Foreman for the WBO Heavyweight Championship. This was Morrison's shot at redemption, the fight that could finally put his name among the greats. On June 7th in Las Vegas, he was ready to challenge Foreman, proving once and for all that he was more than just hype. He was a true warrior of the ring. Tommy Morrison's conditioning was never quite where his team wanted it, except for one fight. The only time he reached peak shape was for his bout against George Foreman. Why? Because he was terrified of Foreman's power. That fear pushed him to train harder than ever, knowing he was up against one of the most dangerous knockout artists in heavyweight history. Tommy understood what he was facing. He knew Foreman's reputation and had a deep respect, even fear, for his devastating punching ability. Many may remember that Morrison trained right in Kansas City, and according to his trainer, this was the only fight where Tommy gave his absolute best in training. He cut out all distractions, no partying, no women, just pure focus. A massive payday was waiting if he could get past Foreman. Millions of dollars were on the line. This was a moment. The two hardest-hitting heavyweights squaring off for the WBO Heavyweight Championship. Monday, June 7th, live on pay-per-view. The big question, when Foreman lands his best shot, will Tommy still be standing? 12 rounds of boxing for the WBO Heavyweight Championship of the world. With the top referee in the business overseeing the fight, Morrison had a simple game plan. Get in, throw his punches, and get out. And it worked. A solid right hand landed, and he stuck to the plan. The fight ended and history was made. In 1993, against all odds, Tommy Morrison reached the peak of boxing. He became the heavyweight champion of the world by defeating a legend, George Foreman. After the fight, his team told him that if he trained hard for just 1 year, they could make $100 million. But Tommy couldn't keep that promise. He celebrated his victory exactly as you'd expect, with wild parties and reckless behavior. He was a movie star, a handsome guy, living life in the fast lane, women partying and no discipline. It was all part of the ride. Tommy didn't believe in protecting himself, in the ring or outside of it. His life was all about excess. As he continued fighting, his focus started slipping. He still went all out in the ring, but he abandoned strategy too often, leading to brutal fights where he took a lot of punishment. Morrison was on the verge of his biggest payday yet. A $9 million fight against Lennox Lewis. But before that, he wanted a tune-up fight. His team found what they thought was a safe opponent, Michael Bent, an ordinary heavyweight. It should have been an easy win. The night before the fight, Tommy went to a concert and got drunk. He wasn't taking it seriously. People often asked him how many women he had been with. His answer? Too many. Boxing is a sport that demands discipline. Without it, you won't last. Tommy had one job, win this fight, and he'd be set for life. But that's not how it played out. Morrison stepped into the ring, hoping to get closer to his mega fight with Lennox Lewis. Instead, everything fell apart. Just over 2 minutes into the first round, Tommy Morrison was knocked out. In an instant, his life-changing $9 million payday was gone. That was rock bottom. After the Bent fight, his longtime manager quit. The Tommy Morrison hype train had officially derailed. For a long time, Tommy lived in denial. He knew what his problems were, but facing them was another story. His potential was limitless. But his downfall was just as dramatic. Write something. Struggling to accept that his boxing career was slipping away, Tommy Morrison decided to return to his roots. He left behind the fast-paced party life in Kansas City, Missouri, and bought a ranch near his childhood home. For the first time, Tommy seemed to be growing up. He distanced himself from the temptations of the city and embraced a quieter, family-centered lifestyle. Here he is spending time with his monkey, and here he is playing with his cats. Just normal, everyday life. Tommy was saying all the right things, but the boxing world had seen plenty of fighters claim they had changed, only to fall back into old habits. Determined to prove himself, Tommy returned to the ring. Look, Ray Mercer did it. Michael Bent did it. Bent didn't have much experience. I have more than that. With his past loss in mind, many fighters lined up to take their shot at him, believing Morrison was now vulnerable. But Tommy had been working on his skills. This young man has really sharpened his punches since we last saw him. Down goes his opponent. It's over. Tommy Morrison just showed off his full arsenal. Win after win, knockout after knockout, Tommy was back. There won't be any fancy footwork here. Nobody's mistaking this for a dance hall. Any setback during this time could have ended Tommy's dreams of another title shot. A lot is riding on this fight. He needs a strong performance. If he doesn't pull it off, he might end up driving a truck or doing anything else. But he won't be a heavyweight champion. This time, there were no setbacks. Was this the new Tommy Morrison? That's what he told everyone. New attitude, new style, new confidence, same devastating left hook. See that height difference? That's real. Brown is 7 feet tall. But Tommy found an opening. That well-known left hook just sealed the deal. Another knockout in the third round. At 26 years old, Tommy had been in the game so long that people thought he was older. And with his powerful left hook to the body, he kept proving his doubters wrong. That was one of the best left hooks to the body he's ever thrown. It completely shut his opponent down. In just a year, Morrison climbed his way to the #1 contender spot. In 1995, he earned another shot at a title, facing Donovan Razor Ruddock for the IBC belt. Ruddock was a warrior who had gone the distance with Mike Tyson. This is a major moment in Tommy Morrison's career. But things didn't start well. Tommy was knocked down in the first round. It seemed like another disappointing night for him. But Morrison showed true grit, kept pushing forward, and then a huge uppercut. Morrison is down. He got back up determined. Then came the moment that changed everything. People talk about Morrison's left hook. Watch this. Boom. Perfect timing. The crowd in Kansas City erupted. Tommy Morrison, knocked down in the first round, fought back to win by TKO in the 6th round. And new IBC heavyweight champion, Tommy the Duke Morrison. For those who had called him overrated, and to those who still did, Tommy Morrison had just become a 2-time heavyweight champion. In '95, I won another title. Knocked out Razor Ruddock in a spectacular fight. With that victory, Tommy quickly secured the fight he had always wanted, a match against Lennox Lewis. But when fight night arrived, Morrison wasn't in top condition. Two big power punchers, Lennox Lewis and Tommy Morrison. With his trainer by his side, Tommy stepped into the ring. A two-time world heavyweight champion, ready for the biggest test of his career. But as was often the case, Tommy started strong and then faded after the early rounds. Morrison just can't get inside. Lewis is keeping him at bay with that jab. The fight didn't go as planned, and it was clear that Tommy's struggles weren't just inside the ring. His journey was far from over. Boston is struggling to avoid Lennox's jab, and if this keeps up, we might be looking at the 12th knockdown of the fight. So far, he hasn't managed to slip past Lewis's punches. He's taking them straight on. Lennox is keeping him at a distance, controlling the fight with his jab. Right now, Lewis is landing combinations whenever he wants. You can feel the stoppage coming. Lane is watching closely. When Tommy Morrison ran out of gas, Lennox finished the job. Morrison is down again. That's the 4th knockdown of the fight. Mills Lane has seen enough. That's it. A dominant performance by Lennox Lewis. He defended himself well, keeping his right hand up the whole time, completely shutting down Morrison's dangerous left hook. At the time, Tommy Morrison was still a big name, and Don King set him up with a massive deal, a 3-fight contract worth $38, $5 million. No matter what happened in the ring, win or lose, Tommy would be set for life. But this time, he never even made it to the fight. The whole thing fell apart just hours before his scheduled bout on February 10th. That night, he was following his usual pre-fight routine, taking a walk to clear his head. But when he got back to his room, he saw his message light blinking. "You failed your medical exam," they told him. "You tested positive for HIV." The news hit like a bombshell. The fight was called off immediately. Shortly after, Tommy Morrison addressed the public for the first time since his diagnosis. He had a message for his young fans. "I'd ask that you no longer see me as a role model, but as someone who had the chance to be one and blew it." At just 27 years old, Tommy was banned from boxing. His career was over. Without a way to make a living in the ring, his life started spiraling out of control. He was arrested for DUI and drug possession, sinking deeper into depression and addiction. He served 14 months of a 10-year sentence before being released. After his release, things only got stranger. Tommy turned to cosmetic surgeries, getting bicep and chest implants. His appearance became almost unrecognizable. He kept denying his HIV diagnosis, all while battling drug addiction. By the time he was 44, his health had completely deteriorated. Oh my God, he was falling apart. His life was over. He looks like a 70-year-old man. Man, he was not doing good. In his final days, Tommy Morrison was broke, sick, and requesting a court-appointed attorney. Then, the inevitable happened. The boxing world took a heavy loss as news broke. Tommy Morrison had passed away at 44 years old. His life ended in tragedy, but his impact on boxing remains. A two-time heavyweight champion, Tommy Morrison shook up the division and gave fans unforgettable moments in the ring. Rest in peace, Tommy.